What's going on, y'all? I'm Harrison.
I'm Kristen, and we're going to show y'all the deadlift exercise and what we evaluated from our friend Sarah. We evaluated Sarah. She's 25 years old. She's pretty well active for the most part. She works at St. Jude, and she is a child behavioral researcher, and she's pretty much on her feet all day long, works out 3 to 4 times a week.
So, what we had Sarah do was a deadlift. And just like Kristen just said, Sarah is a little active. Mostly she does cardio training and stuff like that. So she's not too familiar with the deadlift, so that's why we wanted to have her do that. So when we look at a deadlift, we've got 3 different phases. And then depending on if you're doing competition, there may or may not be a 4th phase. So in the first phase, we're gonna have our stance. So that's gonna be our setup. So we're gonna make sure that we've got everything set up correctly, scapular retraction, feet, shoulder width apart, all that stuff. And then the second phase is gonna be our transition phase. So that's from when the bar just comes off the ground, from right when it comes off the ground to the top of the lift. So the third phase is gonna be our lockout. So that's gonna be full extension of everything. And then the 4th phase is transition 2, and like I said before, that's mostly in competition where you're not allowed to drop the bar from your lockout phase. So phase 1, some critical features that we're going to look at is our straight back. We're going to need to have scapular retraction, so we have our chest out. And we're going to look at our knee angle. We want that to be about 90 to 110, 115 degrees, somewhere like that. So we're going to want to keep the bar over the middle of our feet, so our center of gravity is in the middle, so we're pushing directly through our heels into the ground. And then phases 2 and 3 pretty much hold the everything from phase 1, keep everything tight, engage your glutes, engage your back, all that good stuff. Alright. So when we look at a good deadlift, what it's supposed to look like, so the start position's right here, and we can see he's got a good angle. We've got about 89 degrees of knee flexion, and his back is nice and straight, so that looks really good. And then we'll notice his center of gravity is right over his feet, and he's right over the bar. And then his extension phase, everything is in a straight line going right through his heels. So that's what we're going to want to see in the deadlift. And as far as our frontal plane view,
We want our feet shoulder width apart, and then your hands need to be right outside of the feet. If your hands are right above the feet, then you're going to rake that bar across your legs and it's not going to feel good. Or if they're too far apart, that's not the correct way of doing it.
all right. So when we had Sarah do the deadlift, we were in a gym, just an open gym. She had normal gym attire, running shoes, tank top, leggings. And the planes that we looked at was from the side, so her sagittal plane view, and then we looked at her frontal plane view as well. And I just used my phone and the Coach My video app to film and edit everything. So, and again, those key points that we're gonna look for is her setup. So we're gonna look at her knee angle in her setup and her hand placement and foot placement. And then we're also gonna look at her straight back, that's most important, and then her lockout phase. So, let's watch Sarah do a deadlift. So here's her frontal plane view. All right, and then here's her sagittal plane view. All right.
Well, Sarah, her feet look pretty well. Her feet were just right at shoulder width apart, but her hands are way too far outside of the feet. They need to be a little closer in, right outside the feet, and that would have been her correct position.
So from her sagittal plane view, we see that her lockout phase is good. Everything's in a straight line going, once again, straight through her heels down into the ground. But her knee angle is very wide, so we're gonna need her to decrease that, you know, again, roughly 110 degrees is maybe what we're looking for with her, because she's too wide. And her back has a small arch in it, so we're gonna wanna get her to straighten that out as well. All right, so here is us giving her a little bit of tips. We had her straighten out her back. So as far as frontal plane motion, all right, stop. Bring your hands in just a little bit. All right, feet look good. All right, that looks good. And then here's her sagittal plane view. Let's do one more time. So go down. All right, stop. So bend at the knees a little bit more. All right, good. Your back looks good. All right. All right. So after we corrected her, told her we got her to straighten out her back. Her foot placement is good, as Kristen said earlier, and yeah. So let's go ahead and look at this. So, all right. So if we stop right here, we'll see that her foot placement looks pretty good, shoulder width apart, like we said, and her hands, we're gonna see that she brought them in a lot more now, so they're a lot closer to her legs, which is gonna prevent her from having to bend over as far and doing something like a back extension. So then she lifts, looks good. So from the frontal plane, everything looks good. And then let's take a look at her sagittal plane. So from this view, we stop right here. She straightened that back out. So we were able to get her to do that. So she's got a nice straight back now. So we're gonna prevent her straining anything. And then we're gonna look at that knee angle again. So we got her to decrease it a little bit. It's still a little bit open, but that's okay since considering she was at 140 degrees before. And then her lockout. Her lockout's been good since the start. Everything's in line, center of gravity in the middle, right through the floor. So that's what we're looking for.
By correcting these things, Sarah is at a lower risk of injury, whereas before, when she was using her back instead of her legs, she was at a more increased rate for injury. And to conclude us, Sarah, we just had her do the deadlift just by kind of telling her just a little bit of how it went, and then after giving her instruction and coaching her on what the right ways of doing things were, she was very receiving of that, and she corrected everything that we told her to do and decreased her injury rate.
All right, that's it. Thank you all very much.